Binge or Bin from Independent TV, giving you the lowdown on which TV shows are binge-worthy and which ones are bin-worthy. This week, we've been watching The Lazarus Project on Sky and The Terminal List on Prime Video.
And we'll introduce you to our pick of hidden gems we think you should be watching.
Annabel, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I've watched a lot of television. I think you probably
let's
have
dig
as well.
into it.
Yeah.
What have you been watching?
I've been watching a new show called The Lazarus Project, which is a new show from a guy called Joe Barton, whose show before this was Haji, which got cancelled after one series on the BBC. And he's got his head down, he's written a new show. The Lazarus Project is a time loop drama. It's like Spooks meets Groundhog Day. So basically it stars Paapa Essiedu, who was so great in I May Destroy You. He stars as this guy called George, who is enlisted by this group called the Lazarus Project, who are basically tasked with stopping the world from ending. Whenever the world ends, they report that the world ends all the time, but we don't know about it and we continue living because they get to go back in time and they get to stop the world from ending. It wears its influences on its sleeve, but it's not defined by them. And I think that's why I have really enjoyed watching this show. I think it's actually very well written. I think it's got a lot going against it. I think you kind of get the sense that Joe Barton is kind of carrying like all these packages and they're like balanced, they're like in danger of toppling. But somehow, when the series ends, he's kept them all like in order.
You okay?
Yeah. The cast are great. I think, Paapa Essiedu is really good, and I think he's going to have a hell of a career ahead of him. Anjali Mahindra, who is kind of skirted in supporting roles like around the side in shows like Vigil and Line of Duty, finally gets a chance to shine as Archie. She's fantastic. Tom Burke from The Souvenir is in this, and Caroline Quentin, who is also just really great. Like, I think she's been in things for so long now, you forget how good she is, and she's really well utilised here.
So what kind of genre is it? It feels like a mishmash of a lot.
It is, yeah. It's kind of like espionage drama, but like with time travel thrown in there.
Well, I feel like I know where we're going with this, but is it a binge or a bin?
It's a bin. I hate it. I'm joking. It's a binge. Lazarus Project is a binge.
So I've been tucking into The Terminal List on Amazon Prime, which is as silly as it sounds. It is an 8-part military thriller starring Chris Pratt, and it's an adaptation of a book by Jack Carr, who's a New York Times best-selling author. Kind of fits into that legacy of the Tom Clancy adaptations of Jack Ryan, and then also like that film The Tomorrow War that came out a while ago. It's created by David DiGilio and Antoine Fuqua, who, his most famous credit will be Training Day with Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke, but this is definitely no Training Day. It's very macho and testosterone fueled, and obviously I feel like we've seen Chris Pratt since he was that lovable guy in Parks and Recreation. He's really made such an effort to move into action territory, and most recently with Jurassic World, which was awful. This is a little bit more serious. Just because it's more serious doesn't mean it's not silly.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Headaches, paranoia, memory confusion.
So it's one of those shows, like I said, that's really aggressive and macho and kind of a revenge story. This was just gratuitous. So Pratt plays James Reese, this Navy SEAL whose life is turned upside down when his platoon is killed on an overseas mission. And then he returns home and we see him have PTSD and these memories, and it comes to light that the botched mission was probably due to a conspiracy theory, and he's just uncovering the conspiracy and killing people along the way. It could have been good if it was at all interested in the ethics of it all, but it's very much he has a list. There's no shades of grey. There's no kind of taking into consideration the moral aspects of revenge. And it's also not going too far the other way. It could be a fun, satire leaning into the whole revenge genre, but it's not that either. You've got Riley Keough. She was recently in Zola, and I really like her as an actor, but she plays the adoring wife in this, and it's very much a side role. She's not given anything to do. And similarly, Constance Wu from Hustlers and Fresh Off the Boat plays this journalist, and it's very much textbook journalist, like getting to the bottom of the story kind of thing. It just feels very two-dimensional.
The Terminal List. Binge or bin?
It's a massive bin. I mean, I went into it with low expectations and it managed to undercut even those.
I'm not gonna tell you again. Stay off my list.
So moving on to bigger, better things.
Hidden Gems.
Hidden Gems.
Yeah, I love talking about these because it's just shows that we love, that we can recommend, that people might not have heard of, or we can recommend and they kind of fast track it to the top of their list. And the one I'm going to talk about this week is actually one probably inspired by my recent trip to Glastonbury. Paul McCartney was there headlining at the age of 80, and last year he did a TV show called McCartney 321, which was a documentary alongside music producer Rick Rubin, whereby it literally is just Paul McCartney, Rick Rubin in a room with mixing desk, and they're listening to songs that Paul McCartney has written, and sometimes that his fellow Beatles wrote as well, and he's kind of isolating, bass line here, vocals here, and he's just talking about the story behind what inspired those truly amazing musical moments. The whole thing is kind of spearheaded by Rick Rubin and Paul McCartney, who co-produced the series, and you get a sense that Rubin is just like such a massive fanboy. Paul McCartney is watching him with, I don't know how I would be watching Paul McCartney speak if I was just sat in a room with him. So you get the sense that they were just kind of, he came up with the idea and then Hulu decided to greenlight it.
What do you remember about this?
At the time, I was just working with this bloke, John. Now I look back and I was working with John Lennon.
All my love. Even now, I think Paul McCartney, at the age of 80, he's probably 79, 78 when he filmed this show, is, you see him, sometimes he doesn't really know where this genius kind of came from. And obviously we saw this in Get Back, the Peter Jackson documentary that was on Disney Plus last year. But sometimes he's just like, I don't know where that came from. There are moments where he gives anecdotes and it's something I've never read before. So for that alone, I think this show is worth it.
He's a great, great musician.
Did I write that?
That is John Lennon.
That's John.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that. That's beautiful.
So my hidden gem this week is Togetherness, which was an HBO show from 2015, and it was really sadly cancelled in 2016 after just 2 seasons, which I think was just one of the biggest mistakes that HBO could make. So Togetherness is a comedy drama co-created by the Duplass brothers. One brother, Mark, is probably best known to audiences for The Morning Show, and he was also in some really good horror films called Creep, if you're interested in that. He is very multi-talented. So Togetherness was created by them together with Steve Zissis, who also stars in the show as well. It stars Mark Duplass and Melanie Lynskey as this middle-aged married couple, and then it's about kind of their relationship and also their relationship with like a Melanie Lynskey's sister, who's played by Amanda Peet, and also Mark Duplass's best friend, who's played by Steve Zissis.
I can't take skinny, beautiful LA people looking at me like I'm a whale.
I don't think everybody thinks you're a whale.
People look at me, man, they want to harpoon me.
It's just one of those shows that is about friendship and love and marriage, and it just does that really well. It's a premise that's been done so many times before it and after it. It's like, oh, entangled friendship groups and relationships. But I think they can get really samey, whereas I rewatched Togetherness recently and it still feels really fresh. And I think a lot of that is to do with Melanie Lynskey, who has kind of had this resurgence after Yellow Jackets, which I know you binged, but I loved. And I think it introduced a lot of people to Melanie Lynskey, and she's been around for so long, but she hasn't really got her proper due. And I think people who like her in Yellow Jackets, there's definitely tones of that same character in Togetherness. Unsatisfied and a little bit dangerous. She's so good at playing that role. Also, Amanda Peet, I think, is amazing. And she in this kind of, I mean, if you've seen Girls, Marnie, played by Alison Williams, it's a kind of similar role to that it's really cringy. But I would say that at the same time, it's a comedy drama, but it definitely is more drama. I'm crying more than I am laughing. It's just one of those shows that's really powerful, and it has a very lasting effect on you.
How are we supposed to do this?
I would like to know we're in it together.
Thanks so much for watching Binge or Bin. There's quite a few TV recommendations there, and one that you should absolutely ignore if Annabel is to be believed. Join us again next time.